Yep. So I'm on the time. I appreciate we've got morning tea, afternoon tea coming up. So if the door starts flapping and there's no one left, I'll understand where you've gone. I'll try to engage with the audience as well as we go. So fraud is often the elephant in the room. It's something that we're talking about, the consumer environment for the theme of today. And obviously we don't accuse our customers of being fraudsters. It's the last thing we want to do, but we do know it goes on. So we have to find that balance between identifying the fraud that's going on and engaging with the public to try and educate and inform them that we are trying our best to stop this effect leading into things like extending the costs of insurance. So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, and some of you may or may not be aware of various tools and processes that go on. But one of the things New Zealand has, which is quite an envy of a lot of places around the world, is an initiative called the Insurance Claims Register, which is now in its 15th year. And it's been very successful, and it's evolved into various capabilities over the years. And last Monday, we launched the very latest version of that, which I'm very proud to be able to bring to you and demonstrate what we're doing. It leaves us with a platform that we can develop further. So I'm going to go through some various elements of fraud, and in particular the Insurance Claims Register, which forms the tool that we use. We cover about 90% of the claims market here in New Zealand, and one of the things we're trying to do is to encourage, I'd love to see 100% of the claims market. So one of the subliminal messages I'll be saying to you is, if you like what you see and you want to share that engagement with us, we'd like to have you involved as well. So often people say, how do you determine fraud? Well, to simplify that, I often use a very simple analogy. You've got people and money equals fraud. It's very simple, but in effect you see that temptation where people look to gain an advantage, particularly monetary, and the temptation is always there. I talk about the moral seal, and one of the things that we use in the techniques to determine fraud is to try and determine those people who may have agonized over whether or not to add a camera to their travel claim, and then decide, well, I might as well throw an iPhone and an iPad at the same time. Who cares? No one's going to know. And it's that not going to know and that attitude that we often come across. I wasn't going to tell a joke, but I'm going to tell a joke. People often say to me, how do you determine a fraudster? Well, the story I like to refer to is an example where a lawyer is in a country club and hotel at the bar opening a bottle of Bollinger, and a dishevelled chap walks into the bar, and the lawyer says, oh, you don't look too well, would you like a glass of champagne? So the dishevelled guy goes, that's very kind, are you celebrating? And the lawyer says, well, my house burnt down, and the insurance company's put me up in this lovely hotel, so I thought, well, maybe I'll have some champagne to celebrate being in this lovely environment. And he says, so why are you here? So the dishevelled man says, well, during the recent storms, my house was flooded out and I had nowhere to go, so the insurance company's put me up in the same hotel. So it's very good. So the lawyer leans over and says, well, here's a glass of champagne. By the way, how do you start a flood? So you never know who's there. So we talk about different frauds. We've got hard fraud, organised crime, car ringing, body shop collusions. It can be premeditated, as I mentioned, about travel, adding an extra thing to your claim. Repeat offenders, serial claimants, these are the sorts of things we're looking for. Double dipping. I've had a long argument with somebody who is a very intelligent chap who doesn't believe double dipping is wrong. He says, well, I've got 2 policies with 2 companies. So I make a claim, I benefit. I'm paying for the insurance. They don't understand the concept of betterment. And so we try and educate that as well. And one of the processes we're going to engage in this year, particularly with the new ICR, is to look at ways of educating the public to not accuse them of being fraudsters, but to be aware that we can catch you now. We're going to be a lot smarter in doing that, and to understand what is right and what is wrong. What do those standards are? Because this chap who genuinely believed double dipping was an absolutely fair point. Had no intention of being a fraudster, but he believed it was his right to having 2 policies to make 2 claims. So these we call these the soft fraud, the opportunist, enhancing a genuine claim, and double dipping as well. Genuine feeling of right to claim. How many times have we heard the story where you've had insurance for 15 years, not made a claim, it's about time I got some payback? And it's an attitude problem. So there is an easy option dealing with fraud. We can ignore it. And there's a hard option. Stop the horse from bolting, or shutting the door after it's bolted. But there is other ways, and there's smarter ways. And we've talked a lot today about collaboration, collusion, dealing with large data sets. How do we make sense of that? How can we work that to our advantage to help combat this particular problem? So collaboration, this is really what is the core concept of the insurance claims register, is collaborating so that we can try and share this common knowledge outside of our normal environment to look at those repetitive offenders, that claims history. There's different companies do different ways. In-house fraud teams, and particularly some exceptional talented people in the industry right now. I will name some because it's due respect to them. Sarah Quinnell at Vero and her team. You've got Natasha McFlynn at IAG, formerly Lumley, and Rebecca Tasker, her predecessor, all extremely talented people. And you've got various other people at Tower, Tansy Bakewell. Really, really smart people who are really working hard on this common problem. Often some companies will outsource both to private investigators and have in-house fraud teams, but it's really that collaboration and determining what's required to understand whether or not a problem has taken place. So in isolation, we have the various insurers here, and the common goals that a lot of insurers are looking for is assessing risk, of course, particularly with new business, looking for issues of non-disclosure to set that premium or that policy level. Double dipping, as we've mentioned, as well. Historical fraud tip-offs. We talk about attitude, and one of the things we're seeing a greater awareness is of the public ringing up our fraud line or sending us through information on our online fraud tip-off system, and they're really, really hacked off. That people they know, family members or members of their sports team or friends, are actually committing insurance fraud, and they don't like it. They know that their premiums are paying for some of that fraud, and it's all about percentages. Often we're asked how much fraud takes place in New Zealand. It's a really hard question to ask. You know, we could be talking 150 to 250 million dollars a year. You know, it's very hard to fine tune that. But if you look around the world, you know, 10 to 20% of GWP could be assessed as being fraudulent. So it's big numbers. So if you add something like a tool like the ICR into the mix, where those insurers who in isolation actually start sharing information together, then you can see there is a much greater capability to identify some of those problems that manifest in the fraud world. An interesting point at the bottom, we were asked a while back if we were able to allow HR to check the ICR for new members of staff coming on board, because do you want to employ a new member of staff that maybe have a flag on the ICR for being a fraudster? Maybe not. So again, we work closely with privacy issues and legal teams to ensure that the code of practice that we engage with follows those protocols. So just a couple of quick examples of some success stories. Warning flags I've mentioned, they're put on where somebody has been known to or suspected of committing a fraud. And these are just a couple of many examples we have that the ICR has directly related to identifying fraud. So the all-new ICR launched last Monday. I've never been busier since Monday about 8:30. Normal issues, IT, rollouts, user logins and those sorts of things, but very quickly affected. But it's been very, very smooth in terms of the new platform. It's a whole new technology, very exciting. If you're into technology, which I am, I'd love to talk to you about it later. But if you're not and you want to stick pins in your eyes, because it really does, but just believe me, it's a good system. And I hope to show you some of the key advantages and the new initiatives that we're going to be able to develop from this technology. The old system was starting to get a bit sluggish. 7 million records now. Search speeds were taking minutes looking for somebody or an address. Not really good enough. So we're now into seconds and even nanoseconds in the context of how it searches. A simpler user interface, make it simpler for the users, less training issues and so on. The new capability is that we're now going to be able to do real-time checking. So instead of the old system of sending in a bulk search for new policies that may have been set up that day and looking for any history of claims, with enhancements we can actually do that now in real time. So imagine that you've got your claims handler taking a call about an insurance claim, and as they're typing their name in the system, it's pinging the ICR and checking if there's a flag or any non-disclosure issues. Really good. Geospatial analysis. Where are the hotspots? Where is this information happening? Where is the history of claims happening? Is there any correlations with police burglary statistics? All this sort of drilling down of big data is all now capable using the claims history of the ICR. And fraud alerts built in. So business rules. So for example, if I'm interested in anyone who's made 5 accidental damage claims in a year, then I want to know about that. Now, they may not have that with one company. So if you're not a member of the ICR, you're not going to know they're making claims with other people. But we can automate that alert to you in real time by sending you an email and saying, you might want to look at this. It's entered that area of suspicion. So again, we're not into making accusations of people, but you do possibly want to just check things are all above board and the risk that is being set is as accurate as it can be. I was going to do a live demo, but I'm conscious of the time. So what I'm going to do is, here's something I prepared earlier, a screenshot. So we've simplified this user interface. We've got the corporate pink shade, which I don't know what the actual Pantone color code is, but I call it pink. It's meant to be vendor neutral, so it doesn't offend any particular color related to another company. So if any new company comes on board that has that particular shade of pink, we're going to have to change the system. But hey, that's just life. So I mentioned simple interface. I appreciate this is quite small from the back, but in essence, we've got the fields that you would fill in. And in the old system, we had to open up different screens for different types of searching. So now all we do is we expand to add in the various elements that you want. So it improves on the user experience so they don't have to keep moving and clicking away. It's minimizing that click concept to make the workflow more accurate. And there's an example here where you search for a person and it just comes up very quickly. At the bottom here, you've got 2 people who are very similar, and then we can drill down and look at their claims history very quickly. And if there's any alerts or flags, as you can see on the right-hand side, there's none in this case. I've neutralized this, of course, for privacy issues as well, so that we don't breach anyone's confidentiality. This is mocked up anyway. And we can drill down to that individual person's history as well and the details of that particular claim. So very quick, it's just, as I'm doing it here on the screen, it's as you would see live, you just click and click and click. So the other thing I'd like to show you is another element of this, which is dashboards. And so you may have seen Propello outside. Propello are our technical partners in developing the new system. And some of you may have seen their screens with the dashboards. So the dashboards are all developed for the individual logins for users. So you can imagine a base user at the company may just want to see how many claims they've made that month, week, year, what their average search speed is for a search, so they can keep a track on what's going on. The managers may want to know which groups are more effective in how many searches they're doing. For me, I have strategic oversight of all the data, so I'm interested in looking at are there any issues with data quality, particularly the daily files that are uploaded? Is there a particular trend where one company is having issues with some of the fields that are not being filled in fully? And so I can start to identify that much more quickly. So in this case, I do have a mouse somewhere, it's in my pocket. Switch that on. So in this case, I can look at various things that I appreciate it's quite small, but for example, total claims that have been added in a particular timeline. What's the total value of those claims? That's interesting statistics as well. How many flagged persons have been entered in that particular month? The color coding in this bar chart is to show each individual company, or it will be. It's just a mock-up at the moment. I might be interested in some geospatial. I mentioned geospatial, so I'll type in a location, add a date range in, and these are the class codes of the claims. So I might click on burglary claims. So I'm looking for hotspots. So this is all based now on the ICR. So if you're familiar with the old ICR, which is very much a static database, which is a search screen and a result screen, all this information is now going to be available to you, and you can start seeing, hotspots. So the underwriters and the risk assessors can see much more granular the details of where the problems are occurring and the trends as well over time, looking at timelines, very interesting. We can again drill down to look at suspicious claims. So again, using Ponsonby and a date range, click on various elements here. So I might see, for example, I've got 8 double dipping claims within September 2015, and so on. So all this sort of information is pretty much extracted from the database and can be presented in any way we like. So go back to my PowerPoint. So, there we go. So we mentioned real time. So the ICR is related to the insurer, and as we start looking down here, we can see these extra elements that are being evolved now with this new platform that we have. And not only with, it's a thing called CAS, which you're seeing on the screen here. CAS is called a Compliance Automated Server. And this allows this real-time component to drill down. But the great thing about CAS is that it's also agnostic to existing technologies. So that could even work within your existing systems very simply, that overlays across your systems. So for example, it could work with your payment system. So just before a payment is made, it can recheck the ICR in real time to see if a flag's appeared since the time that the claim was raised to the payment process. So you can instantly check if there is a reason why that claim has not been or shouldn't be paid. So various elements that this can integrate within. One of the processes I do is, if I missed something, predictive analysis. I didn't want to miss this, I'm running out of time. We're also looking at predictive analysis. This is literally, if this was $1,000 Rembrandt that you found on Trade Me, the paint would still be wet. So this is how new this slide is. So the line at the bottom is the actual weather events. This was a weather event analysis with claims history from the ICR. So we're looking at claim events and spikes, and then the line above it is all the claims history and clusters that appeared around the same time as these weather events. So we're starting to look at these situations where the broader data sets we have, we may be able to start looking at ways where you can start to say, well, I'm going to get a spike. If this weather event occurs, it's similar in prediction to the one that we had previously in history, we may anticipate a $200 million claim problem or that sort of thing. So this is still a very much of an ongoing process we're looking at doing, but this is the sort of capabilities we're building into the system. So the other thing I like to very quickly show you is one of my other roles is to do analysis on behalf of the member companies. This is some software called I2, and one of the other sponsors out the front there you might have met called Visual Analysis, and they promote the software called I2. It's used around the world, and I have it in my office for analysis. And so imagine this is some flagged claims from a company. The actual flags are correct. It's just that I've neutralized the company, anonymized the company. So you've got in isolation, looking at information that you're interested in, and I might have another insurer that has a similar group of claims or flagged claims I'm interested in. And what I'm going to do is if I bring them all together, and this is based on true data, and I might say, well, each of these individual colours are all those clusters that we saw before, but I'm looking at them together, and I want to see the correlation between those individual company claims. So what I'm going to do is just use some clever analysis and just to see where the joins occur, where the link analysis is. So those disparate groups of claims within that individual company are now showing as related to other claims or histories of persons or addresses that are also flagged with other companies. So all the ICR member companies can share this information and awareness of the problems. So you see this in real time. And that's one of the services that I provide, as having strategic oversight of all that data. So I'm about 5 seconds away. So this is just another example I was going to show you, but essentially, final slide. We encourage membership of the ICR because, just for dispel any myths, the ICR is a not-for-profit organisation. We don't have to make any money. I, in fact, work on a charitable status. I do actually get paid, but my wife takes all my money, which basically means I'm working for charity. But we have issues saying, well, I'd like to join, I like the idea, and I like the concept, but I'm concerned you're going to grab all my data. The new members are going to grab all my data, and they're going to exploit all that data that I've put in. Well, we've got measures in place where we can audit and monitor in real time, particularly with the new system, that can't happen, and we can be aware of any issues like that. So we will work with new members to allay those fears, and we have a very strict code of practice which the members comply to. Costs. As I said before, we're not for profit. We don't care about making lots of money. It's more about combating the problem. And the more data we have, the better we can understand the problem and we can work on that. So there's a licensing fee agreed with the ICR board, which just really is about covering costs and minimising the costs for everyone. The more members we have, the cheaper it is for everybody. And it's not excessive. If you look at those claims examples of $2,000 and $5,000, you imagine that you have 10 of those a year, it's covered the cost of membership. And privacy, we've just had a privacy review to make sure we're complying with all the privacy issues, and we got a green stamp, probably the wrong word, but a green tick in the box, or they were very happy to say that we are complying with privacy rules. We have a complete transparency process, so the engaging, again, keeping on theme with the consumer, they can apply and have a copy of their history on request. So I'm 2 minutes overdue, I do apologise. So thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the presentation.
Dave, thank you very much. We won't let you go empty-handed. It's something to take away. Since you're a charity, you'll be able to enjoy every last drop of it. You're right.
Very kind, thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah.